Hey viewers, here's Qasim Islam and welcome to my YouTube channel Al-chemystic. Today we will discuss about an important topic about acid and bases, and today's our topic is chemical reactions of acids. So in this topic we will discuss about different types of chemical reactions with different substances of the acids, and we will discuss about different types of products and some of their conditions. So first of all, the first type of reaction, which is the neutralization reaction, as we discussed earlier in the previous topics. For this type of reaction and detail of this reaction, you can see my previous videos about the different types of concepts of acid and base definitions. First of all, we discuss about what is the reaction of acid with the base and how acid react with the base and form different types of products. So, for example, when acid react with base, as you know, according to Arrhenius concept, when acid react with base, it produces salt and water. So, in these reactions, we will discuss about Arrhenius concept. Basically, for example, HCl is an acid and it will react with the sodium hydroxide base. When sodium hydroxide and HCl react with each other, they will produce a salt and water. Salt means NaCl in this reaction, plus water is produced according to this reaction. How this reaction takes place: the chloride ion of the HCl will react with the sodium ion of the sodium hydroxide and it will produce NaCl. And the hydrogen ion of the HCl react with the OH negative ion of the sodium hydroxide and it will produce water. Similarly, another reaction is given: H2SO4 sulfuric acid react with the potassium hydroxide base KOH. When KOH and H2SO4 are react with each other, they will produce K2SO4 potassium sulfate, salt and water molecule. And according to this reaction, the acid will donate the H positive to the KOH, and KOH OH react with the H positive ions of the acid and they will produce water. Similarly, the potassium ions of the KOH react with the sulfate ion of the acid and they will produce K2SO4 potassium sulfate, that is a salt. Similarly, HNO3 nitric acid, when react with the KOH base, it produces KNO3 salt plus water. And how this occur? The hydrogen ion of the acid react with the similarly hydroxylide ion of the base and they will produce water, and the potassium ion of the base react with the nitrate ion NO3 negative ion of the acid and they will produce KNO3 potassium nitrate salt. Similarly, acetic acid CH3COOH react with the sodium hydroxide base and produce a salt sodium acetate CH3COONA plus water. How this reaction takes place? You can see that the H positive ion of the acid react with the OH negative ion of the base and they will produce water molecule. Similarly, the CH3COO negative ion means acetate ion react with the sodium ion of the base and they will produce sodium acetate CH3COONA. So this is different types of examples in which the acid react with the base and perform neutralization reaction and produce salt and water. Similarly, another type of reaction is given as reaction of the acid with metals, and this type of reaction is basically known as metal displacement reaction. Yes, in this reaction the metal ion replace with the hydrogen ion of the acid and produce salt and hydrogen gas. The acid remove its hydrogen ions and these hydrogen ions convert into hydrogen gas, and the anion of the acid react with the metal and they will produce a salt. For example, in the first reaction, HCl is an acid react with the sodium metal and they will produce NaCl plus hydrogen gas. In this reaction, NaCl produce how? Na basically react with the chloride ion of HCl and they will produce NaCl, and this hydrogen ion basically remove from the acid and two hydrogen atoms react with each other and produce hydrogen gas. This arrow represent basically hydrogen gas that is escape out. Similarly, in the second reaction, H2SO4 is an sulfuric acid that will react with the potassium ion. Two potassium atoms react with the sulfuric acid and same process occur as in the example 1. The potassium ions react with the sulfate ion and produce K2SO4 potassium sulfate, and this hydrogen gas is removed out. Similarly, in the third reaction, nitric acid HNO3 react with the magnesium metal, and this magnesium metal will displace the hydrogen ion. Similarly as the above reactions, the magnesium metal react with the nitrate ion and produce magnesium nitrate MgNO3 whole 2. And these hydrogen atoms react with each other and produce hydrogen gas. Similarly, in the last example, hydrochloric acid HCl react with the aluminium metal, and this aluminium metal replace the hydrogen ion and react with chloride ion and produce AlCl3 aluminium chloride. And these hydrogen ions react with each other and produce hydrogen gas. So all in 4 examples, the acid react with different types of metals and they produce salt and hydrogen gas. So next reaction is with carbonates and bicarbonates. Prior to discuss this type of reaction, first of all we will discuss about types of ions of carbon atom. Carbon atoms basically has 2 types of ions. Number 1 is carbonate ion and number 2 is bicarbonate ion. Carbonate ion will be named as CO3 2 negative. CO3 has 2 negative charge. Similarly, bicarbonate ion, it is also known as hydrogen carbonate. This ion basically formula has HCO3 negative. In this ion, one hydrogen atom is present, therefore its charge becomes reduced to -1. In carbonate ion, charge is -2 and in bicarbonate ion, charge is -1. So when acid react with carbonate or bicarbonate, they will produce same type of products. Any acid when react with any type of carbonate or bicarbonate, it only produce salt, water and carbon dioxide gas, CO2 gas. So let's discuss some examples. First example is when HCl, hydrochloric acid, react with Na2CO3, sodium carbonate. Simple ion replacement reactions will be takes place. Na react with the Cl of the HCl acid. When sodium ion react with the Cl, it will produce NaCl, sodium chloride salt. Similarly, hydrogen of the CHCl, hydrogen of the acid, react with the oxygen of sodium carbonate and it will produce water. And at the end, the basically carbon and oxygen react with each other and they will produce carbon dioxide gas. So according to this reaction, NaCl, salt, water and carbon dioxide gas are produced. In the second type of reaction, H2SO4, sulfuric acid react with the sodium carbonate and same type of products are formed, like sodium metal basically react with the sulfate ion and they will produce sodium sulfate. Hydrogen react with the oxygen and it will produce water, and also carbon dioxide gas is released out in the form of gas. Similarly, H2SO4 when react with sodium bicarbonate, sodium hydrogen carbonate, in this compound you can see that there is hydrogen is present, but in the above compound there is no hydrogen. This is sodium carbonate, but this is the sodium bicarbonate. When sodium bicarbonate react with the sulfuric acid, it will produce same type of products. This sodium ion of the sodium bicarbonate react with the sulfate ion and it will produce Na2SO4, sodium sulfate. Similarly, this hydrogen of the sulfuric acid react with the oxygen of sodium bicarbonate and produce water molecules, and plus 2 carbon dioxide gas molecules are released out. Similarly, another example for this type of reaction is nitric acid react with the sodium bicarbonate. When HNO3, nitric acid react with sodium bicarbonate, it also produces salt, water and CO2. The sodium bicarbonate, sodium ion is react with the nitrate ion of the nitric acid and they will produce NaNO3, sodium nitrate. This hydrogen of the acid react with the oxygen of the sodium bicarbonate and produce water molecule, and plus carbon dioxide gas is released from the sodium bicarbonate. So viewers, you can see that in this reaction always same products are formed, salt, water and CO2. The salt basically depends upon the type of acid, which acid react with the carbonate or bicarbonate. So viewers, next reaction is with sulfites and bisulfites of the acid. First of all, we will discuss about ions of sulfur. How many types of ions of sulfur will be exist in nature? Sulfur basically exists generally 5 types of ions. Rather than this, other types of ions are also present, but the major ions of the sulfur abundantly exist in nature are these 5 types. Number 1 is sulfate ion, and its formula is SO4 2 negative. Number 2, sulfite ion, and its formula is SO3 2 negative. In the sulfate ion, 4 oxygen atoms are present. In the sulfite ion, 3 oxygen atoms are present. Similarly, bisulfate ion, HSO4 negative, and bisulfite ion, HSO3 negative. Sulfite and bisulfite are resemble with each other, and sulfate and bisulfate resemble with each other. And the last ion is the sulfide ion, S2 negative. When sulfur atom has 2 minus charge, this is called sulfide ion. So let's discuss some reaction about these ions with the acid. First of all, we will discuss reaction of the acid with sulfites and bisulfites, HSO3 negative and SO3 2 negative ions. So first of all, we will discuss about ion, sulfite ion. When acid HCl react with the sodium sulfite Na2SO3, sodium sulfide, in this compound you can see that SO3 ion is present, so it is a sodium sulfide. Sodium sulfide, when react with the HCl acid, simple ion exchange takes place, and in this process salt, water and SO2 gas is produced, which is called sulfur dioxide gas. NaCl will produce by reaction of sodium atom of sodium sulfide with the chloride ion of the HCl molecule, and it will produce 2 NaCl molecules. The hydrogen, as usual, like other reactions, in the HCl the hydrogen remove and it react with the oxygen of the sodium sulfate and produce water molecule. And similarly, from the sodium sulfide, the SO3 convert into SO2 and it produce SO2 gas. This arrow represents that SO2 is a gas that release out. Similarly, sulfuric acid H2SO4 react with the sodium bisulfite NaHSO3. In the first reaction there is a Na2SO3 sodium sulfide, and in the second reaction there is NaHSO3, that is sodium bisulfite. Sodium bisulfite react with the acid like H2SO4 and it will also produce salt, water and sulfur dioxide SO2 gas. The sodium ion of the sodium bisulfite react with the sulfate ion of the H2SO4 molecule and it produces sodium sulfate Na2SO4. These hydrogen ions react with the oxygen of sodium bisulfite and produce water molecule, and similarly SO2 gas released from the sodium bisulfite. So by using these 2 types of reactions, we have familiar that the reaction of sulfite or bisulfite with acid will produce salt, water and SO2 gas, sulfur dioxide gas. The identity of sulfur dioxide gas is its pungent smell. Yes, SO2 gas has pungent smell, and by producing the pungent smell we can detect that reaction has been proceeded. So the last reaction is reaction with sulfide of the acid. How acid react with the sulfide? As we have seen that sulfide is the S2 negative ion. So when sulfide ion react with the sulfuric acid, for example FeS, iron sulfide. Iron sulfide when react with the sulfuric acid H2SO4, simple ion replacement reaction occur. Fe react with the SO4 of the acid and produce FeSO4, and H2 of the acid react with the sulfur ion and produce H2S gas. So in this reaction FeSO4, ferrous sulfate and H2S gas, hydrogen sulfide gas will be produced. Similarly, another reaction takes place. HCl acid react with the FeS, and in this reaction Fe react with Cl and produce FeCl2 iron chloride, and H react with the sulfur and produce H2S gas. So by using this reaction H2S gas is produced, and the identity of this gas is H2S gas has rotten egg smell. Yes, H2S gas has rotten egg smell, and by recognize this type of smell, rotten egg smell, we can identify that this reaction takes place or not. So viewers, this is the topic in which we discuss about different types of chemical reactions of acid with different substances, and we have discussed different types of products. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much.